Please let me know, nod if it is okay.
It's fine, very clear.
Right. So yes, it is a challenge because I'm very sure that in all your universities, you have a scholar working somewhere with old books and he or she will say, my research has no impact, because impact means this. I mean, talking with industry, with oil industries or manufacturer or everything. So sometimes it's simply because the people don't realize how they can get any kind of impact. My main point is that stimulating cooperation of SSH with industry is mainly a matter of taking the time to understand how research impact is happening, not only in the SSH, but in all disciplines, because we have a problem with this big bad wolf about SSH impact. In fact, systems and methods are ill adapted to evaluate the societal benefits of research in the SSH and in general. Actually, the patents and spin-offs model has been elaborated in a very specific context, and it has little application outside that context. And the fact is that we are in a catch-22 system, because amongst the policymakers, there is a disinterest in trying to understand complex frameworks for impact, because yes, some of them are imprecise and sometimes they are very thin in terms of giving ideas to policymakers how to stimulate impact. But because of this disinterest amongst the policymakers, researchers themselves are not very interested in developing richer understanding of impact. So because we don't have a richer understanding of impact, this goes towards the policymakers, and we continue with the patents and spin-off model all the time. So this has to change. And I will try to show you some ideas about how this can change. Because the important questions about impact are, what are the units of evaluation? What will be the scales of measurements? What are your expectations as universities? What kind of outcomes you want to want? And how you deal, yes, the main question that has been evoked at the beginning about the contradiction between impact and scientific quality, which is still perceived, which is not a fatality, but sometimes it has to be understood, it has to be alleviated. So usual approaches to impact are these: patents and patents income. We are looking at license income, contract research income, commercial income, and spin-off companies. It is usually an opportunistic approach because it is easier to collect. But more recently, some people have started to do some altmetrics, to see altmetrics as a solution for capturing impact. But altmetrics raises other risks, such as data film. I will not be going into detail with this. I refer you to researches by Penny C.S. Andrews. So we need really to understand impact and its pathways so as to understand precisely what we want to measure and if we want to measure that. The usual pipeline model for impact is this one. And much of the discussions we have about the impact are thinking along this very linear way of research happening at the beginning, and then we have some outputs outside the academy. These outputs meet some uptake amongst users, and then we go towards wider societal progress. That progress can also be a commercial one in the form of patents and spin-offs, but not only. In fact, it's very wrong. It is not what is happening, nor in the SSH or in the STEM or in any form of interdisciplinary research. This, we proved it within a cost action. I will not be going into detail about this cost action. I just put here the 4 working groups we had. What I am talking here about is rather what happened in our second working group on societal impact and relevance of the SSH research. And of course, you have here a bit of literature that you can peruse for more details about what I am going to say. What I wanted to show you is that, in fact, pathways to societal impact are much more diverse. Actually, there are 12 of them, and you can see them here. There are alternative, we call them alternative models. there are groups of models. I mean, we have 5 major groups. There is the first one, which is the traditional one, let's say, but there are the four other ones: dissemination, co-creation, reacting to societal challenge, and driving societal challenge. And each of them have different models that interplay. This will become maybe a bit clearer in the next slide, which I apologize if it is not very clear, but I didn't want to multiply the slides. So you have the classical pipeline in the first slide, but there has been some research about the fact that it's maybe more interactive, that things are going back and forth. But actually, what we found when we looked actually at what happened in real research that had real impact is that models are much more complex, as you can see on slides 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you can see that the interactions are not happening after the research, but they are happening all along the research. And if you look at other models of interactions, they are even more complicated. Look at the 12th one. It's really a cascading thing. It's happening not just once, not just after the research, but very often at the beginning of the research. And in some cases, you will have first the social problem and then the research happening. So the usual linear pipeline model is wrong and has to be abandoned. And you must try and understand better how your researchers are working so as to alleviate their fear to go towards industry. But this has already been said quite a lot by my predecessors. I will just talk very shortly about a very specific case of impact, not in my actual university, but in my former university, where we started exactly with the same situation, with researchers saying, I'm working on old literature, who on earth is interested in that in industry? And actually, this model, I mean, I say a 4-9 case study with the digital as go-between, because we can apply here the model 4 that I have shown you in the previous slides and the model 9. I mean, there was this moment of digitization. This is happening everywhere in the world. Everybody is digitizing patrimonial texts. And my scholars started to work on digitization. They were geared towards literary analysis and towards publication in scientific output in journals and everything. So nothing new here. But while starting to work on digitization, they had problems related to expressivity, to shared vocabularies, to long-term accessibility, and of contextualization of contents and processes. And all this led to questions about interchange and archiving. And as it happens, if there is a problem in many industries right now, is how you interchange, and moreover, how you archive the electronic exchanges that are happening in all industries. And nobody really knows how you do with the tons of emails that we are receiving every day. Some of those emails are important to track back decision, but how do you archive them? Well, solution can be here with the scholars from literary analysis. And this is how it started, because in reflecting about metadata and methods to archive old books and old papers, we had some impact on industry. So I am finishing with a recommendation, which is to move the quadruple helix. I will not be going deep there, but I'm saying that the recommendation are: first, observe what you have in your university, mix publics, create an impact context, and then reward, don't punish. Another recommendation you have already heard. Thank you for your attention. I refer you to the site, so to the NRESH website, and I'm at your disposal for questions.
Thank you very much, Ioana. That was a fascinating discourse of a really tough area for translation. But now we're going to move on to the next speaker, and that's Christophe Haunold from the University of Luxembourg, where he comes from the Office of Partnerships, Knowledge and Tech Transfer. And he's going to talk to us now about knowledge transfer metrics. Off you go.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Jonathan. I hope you can see my slides.
Perfectly.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me. And I must say the quality of the presentations just before were just excellent. I'm learning a lot. Thanks a lot for that. So I hope my presentation won't be too dry, because I'm going to talk about a report produced by the European Commission. They are usually not the funniest one, but this one is quite interesting. I'm trying to explain why. I just put in the chat the link, so you can access to the PDF after the presentation. All right. So the question here is, we learned about all the different ways of working with industry and all different ways of getting into knowledge and technology transfer. The question here, the issue is, how do we measure that? And this is, of course, important for a given institution. This is important for governments. This is important for the European Commission. So the question is about metrics. The objective of this work was to provide a harmonized set of indicators. So this is a job asked by the European Commission, namely its Joint Research Center, working with the European Knowledge Transfer Association called ASTP. So we set up an expert group, and so the objective of the expert group was to identify harmonized metrics based on pre-existing work, obviously, because we didn't invent everything. And then there was a question, and this question is still going on, so, the question about how are we going to collect and use these indicators. The group of experts was chaired by Alison Campbell, which some of you probably know from Ireland. Okay, so the report is providing 10 recommendations, and I'm going to go through these recommendations, but only focusing on the most important one, considering the presentations already given before by my co-speakers. And we had some very interesting point already shown by the very practical experience presented before. In the first recommendations, we find the idea that, of course, we have to talk about the outputs. Okay, what goes out of all collaborations and technology transfer, knowledge transfer, but this is very dependent, of course, of the inputs, obviously. So it's not easy to compare, especially amongst different countries, because ASTP is working with more than 33 countries. So the European Commission is interested, of course, by the possible comparison between different countries or different universities and so on. But you must compare what is comparable. And this is a really tricky one, because depending on the field, obviously we don't use the same tools. Ioana gave a very good example of a catch-22 with the use of patents. Obviously, if you are in the field of SSH, patents is not going to be a reasonable and meaningful indicator. This is very clear. But on the other way, it's very complicated to tell to political staff or even to the usual evaluators, we are not going to take this indicator into account, because the number of patents is a very easy one. It's easy to count. It's public. You can just go and ask the database and you will find all the information. The only thing is it doesn't measure the right output because the inputs were not right. So this is one of the first comments I would like to make. Then another very important comment, which was really already illustrated, is that you cannot measure all these activities with only numbers. And this is a question also of taking a snapshot. What is really important is also to explain what we do. And for that, we need storytelling, and we need case studies and so on. I like very much the presentation by Karine about this mixing of episteme and technique and so on. And this is not, I mean, you cannot describe all these results by simply figures and numbers, not the numbers of licenses, the number of, amount of money. This is not enough to explain everything about technology, knowledge, and also what was presented by Karine about the impact on society, organizing the society. So for that, you need to give some case studies. That includes storytelling. And the fourth comment there is about the fact that we don't want to use the indicators just to make a static ranking. So it should be used for describing the development and the motion of knowledge transfer and the evolution. And this evolution gets by thanks to the organization of the ecosystem, the organization of the knowledge and technology transfer office, for instance, and this sort of thing. So it's really important, including for internal monitoring and steering. And it's important to look at the trajectory. So where are we now? Where do we want to go? And the objectives cannot be simply compared between a big technical medical university in UK and a small SSH university in Serbia or in Portugal or in France. Okay. So that was the two first comments. Then the final recommendation is, of course, for the European Commission to build actually a central database, and we can help to do so because within ASTP we are already conducting a survey. We've been doing that for many years, and so we are now with very interesting data about the evolution, and so this central database will be possible to build. Of course, it will be anonymized because that's a bit tricky to give this information away. What we would like also to see within the European Commission programs is that they take into account these kind of indicators for the research programs and also for the knowledge transfer programs. And because currently, I'm pretty sure most of you have been experts for the European Commission for different projects. And if you look at this, I mean, this is quite rare that in the evaluators, you've got skilled people able to consider all these knowledge transfer activities, and besides to get the right indicators in order to measure them and to identify before the project if this is reasonable and this is it makes sense to conduct this research and the transfer. And after the program, it's quite difficult also to get into real deep evaluation of the success. How do we measure if we were successful in a given program or project? I will show very briefly a quadrant you will find in the report showing that, as I mentioned, the inputs and the outputs separate two families of indicators. And besides, you can produce these quadrants using also the idea of having internal context and external context, okay? Obviously, the internal context, and that is something you quite easy to measure because you got this in your university. Okay, you can decide and describe how the tech transfer or knowledge transfer office is organized. You can also see exactly what is the funding for that, and you have you can describe your resources. Okay, so that will be the input from the internal context. But as was said, especially by Christian during the keynote, the context is very important. So the context matters. And you can see on the right-hand side that you have also different inputs, not from the university, but from outside of the university. And this is what we call here the environment. And that describes the context, all right? So the context, of course, you don't have the grip on, but you can play on that and have the ecosystem evaluate also in order to improve the conditions so you can get better input and then thus better outputs. Well, the activity outputs are quite clear also because you can measure them. This is within the university. So we are talking again about very classical indicators, just like the number of spin-off licensing, etc., and contracts, etc. I quite agree with Ioana. This is not always sufficient to measure that, but these are the classical ones, and we cannot really get rid of them like that. The most difficult part is obviously what we've been already presented. It's about impact. So the output away from the university, I mean, in the economical sphere, and this is very difficult for us to measure. But we are definitely convinced that we have to describe that. So impact include economical activity, but also society benefits and society changes. Okay, so the context matters. I think, Jonathan, I'm pretty close to the end. Am I right?
Yes, you've got 10 seconds.
10 seconds is fine, because this is, so I'm not obviously going to describe this. This is just a way we can use within a university the representation of some of these indicators, and maybe in order to show that there are some changes, maybe in the university. Oh, that's me. Shut up. This is an example of maybe my university policy aiming to get more research collaborations. And so I can measure that from one year to another one. Or I can also take into account the context. Maybe in that case, I'm just going to measure how much money I get for proof of concept. And if there is less proof of concept available because of national policy, that will probably have a change on the output. So this is a way for internal use of this sort of indicators, but this is probably too complex for a short explanation. Okay, thanks a lot. And I'm ready for your questions.
Thank you, Christophe. Very interesting indeed. And we move on to our last speaker now, who is Professor Javier Ortega-Garcia. And he's going to tell us about knowledge generation and tech transfer at the UAM in Madrid.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you can see my slides.
Very clearly, thank you.
Okay, this is the last one, so sorry for that. So, hello from Madrid. We are at Universidad Autónoma de Madrid. We have quite a lot of universities in Madrid. This is a research university created just around 50 years ago. We are in a good shape in terms of research, and we are a medium to great in terms of size. We have about 30,000 students, of which 5,000 are PhD candidates. 4 years ago, I was asked by our current rector to develop the innovation, technology transfer, and entrepreneurship for students things, in the sense that beforehand it was put all together, research and innovation. So in the last 4 years, we have developed some activities I want to share with you, just to make you know what we've been done there in Madrid. Our campus is about 20 kilometers away in the north part of Madrid. It is in a very nice place near the Madrid mountains. And we have all our 8 faculties, but together with that, we have lots of research centers. In fact, we have the Knowledge Mile there, and we have the national research centers together with our university and some other institutions. What we've done, some activities we've done. We have started with this Inno1 talks, okay? So in a very brief manner, just in 2 hours, we have been putting together researchers and industrial partners in all senses, corporations, investors, interested guys. So in just 5-minute pitches, researchers must just resume and say basically what they are doing in a specific topic. And then some special partners are also selected to talk. But afterwards, this is the first hour. During the second hour, we've been doing speed networking, speed meeting, just to make each other know what are you doing, what are you working in, how can I help you in your company to put this technology. Some indicators, we have done 35 of these events with more than 2,000 attendees. And we have set up in these moments, about 80 formal agreements added to those we do usually. We do more than 600 agreements per year, in the sense of, I'm talking about agreements in the sense of technology transfer to the private companies, we set up a knowledge transfer promotion program. We have been funding this program in the sense that the whole budget is funded at 50% by the university, to a top of 20,000 euro. Okay, so if a company is interested in a project, then you have 6 months here, this backing stage, to find a partner, to find someone, industry or institution, who is interested in your technology, in your science, in your knowledge, and then we put 50% of the budget. So in order to facilitate and to promote that young researchers can be the principal investigators in this kind of programs. It has been a great success. We have signed, in the last 2 years, we have signed more than 100 contracts using this specific tool. We have also a program for industrial challenges, specifically for social innovation. We go outside, we go to the companies, and we ask them, do you have any social challenges inside your companies? Can university, can research and knowledge generated inside the academia help you in developing what you can do, what you don't find in the market? Can we do that? That is the question that we have set up in the, and we have set up some of these programs. Okay, you have some companies here with which we have set up programs specifically as I'm focusing now in social innovation. Okay? So this is another program we've been working in. Of course, we've been developing the university spin-offs. University doesn't want to stay inside its spin-offs in a very, let's say, very tough manner. We just want to help. We just want our researchers to know that we are behind, that they can use university logo as a knowledge-based company, and that we are there to help, just to find investors, to help. We don't put a lot of money, we don't take a lot of share, of course, but in the last 4 years, we have set up around 40 new companies in all kind of scientific and both scientific and social arena. Of course, patents. In the last 4 years, we have set up around 200 patents. We found difficulties to get these patents to really find industrial partners which are really interested in using these patents. I think I've seen that in academia, in general terms, academia finds difficulties in trying to find partners for their patents. And we have set up a quite innovative entrepreneurship program for students. Why? Because 20 years ago, entrepreneurship was just for those who wanted to set up a company, for those students who had the idea to set up a company. Nowadays, it is no longer like that. We think that entrepreneurship is an attitude, and as an attitude, almost every student should have idea of what entrepreneurship is. And we have set up these 5 programs: Idea, Prototype, Explorer, and for researchers, for PhD candidates. You have here some figures. We have hired some very good external people, managers, engineers, who want to help our students, not only from the academic point of view, but from the really business point of view. And we have about 300 students per year involved in our entrepreneurship programs. We have set up this association with the business associations we have around. We have some very, together with Madrid in the south part, we have 4 villages in the north part, which are really business places, and we have set up some agreements with their business associations, how university knowledge, research knowledge can help business to promote and to go on. This is called Innor Madrid. And finally, we have this technology and science park inside the university. It is not the university itself, but it is together. It is focused on biotech, basically bioscience, biotech, and also artificial intelligence technologies. And you can see there, they have around 100 companies, okay, every year. And these companies, these are the figures. You can, there is 89% survival rate after 2-3 years of these companies, because they are well specialized, and this is the annual turnover of these companies, 70 million euros. So I think I am in time. I just wanted to show what we are doing in the south part of Europe, in Madrid. We are very much involved in the innovation process, and we think knowledge, research conducts to knowledge, and knowledge is the basic driver of innovation and of industrial innovation. So we think we are excellent partners for this process.
Thank you very much. That was excellent, Javier. And I think we are just at the end of that part of the session. So thank you. So can we have the slides off, please? And the panelists all